Hello. Where are we? Ooh.
Hello.
Hello. Is
Hey,
my...
nerds.
Oh, I see. Happened to me again. I was saying hello and talking and my volume was down. Hello everyone, how are you? Admit.
Tired. It has been a long week and I have a big exam at the end of the week.
Oh no, what is your exam in?
Evolutionary biology.
Oh.
Thanks, Ursa. It is very comfy.
That is a fluffy. I like your fluff.
Yeah, it's like a fleece, but like for some reason it being white makes it feel more comfortable than it probably actually is.
You look like you're wearing a marshmallow. It looks so awesome.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, toasty is the right word. Hi, Antoinette.
I've been fueled by Joshi Wrestling.
Hey. Sorry, Wade, what was that? I got excited.
I've been fueled by Joshi Wrestling tonight. It has given me back many spoons.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Awesome. So everybody is in good spirits. I think we are. Yes, Solaris is in here. So we will start. Good evening, everyone. I'm Brendan. This is Office Hours. At this point, if you've listened to any, you probably know the deal. But in Office Hours, we just come together to chat magic. This is not a class or a lecture, but really just an opportunity to get to know each other as members, hang out, and shoot the shit about magic. Tonight, we are talking how set and setting can affect our divination with Solaris. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Solaris.
Good evening. Welcome to my grainy video quality once again. That will change soon, I promise.
No,
just leave me as a thumbnail. It looks better. So tonight was really inspired by the listening to a lot of history podcasts and everything of looking at the spiritualism movement. Okay. Looking at the Victorian spiritualism movement with the seances, with the gathered meetings, talking with the dead, and how much stage production went into it, but also translating that into the more modern sense with make sure you guys can hear me. Okay. With, you know, you see the Instagram photos of people with these beautiful setups, and you get people talking about, oh yes, I have these crystals that I set up for my divination and all of that kind of stuff. And it's really one of those things where it's like, what settings are things that we can use for our divination? What declares it as a sacred space for us to make those connections, and how to really utilize that? So I kind of wanted to start out just really talking about like the kind of settings that you guys use, the kind of things that you guys set up, or that you've seen other people set up and you're like, oh wow, I really like that and want to kind of do that. You know, tarot cloths, or, you know, like the way too many candles for any fire safety codes. You know, that kind of thing, to kind of get the discussion going in that direction, to start pulling apart what each thing's doing and why. And I keep changing colors. That's great. But yeah. So, you know, raise your hands. So don't stampede me or anything, you know.
I'll raise my hand.
All right, Wade.
So I have basically three settings that I use. I have my casual. I basically only throw bones. I have runes. And so I have my casual, like, beginning of the day, I just wake up. I wake up, I pull a rune, and that gives me a sense. And then I have my slightly more formal where I lay down a little bit of velvet. I lay down, the clean shit and do a little toss. And then if I'm real serious, because the Norse path is so focused on nature, I will find a place in the middle of nowhere to throw. And those three settings give me different energies and different vibes.
Oh yeah, definitely. All right, let's see here. I think Brendan was next, but Brendan put the hand down.
I put my hand down because I was more going to just offer something because no one else had raised their hand.
Okay.
In situations, I don't really consider myself a diviner or even a tarot reader at this point. I'm still like learning I don't even know what everything is off the top of my head. So I haven't found my preferred settings or set yet because I'm still like getting myself together. So I was just going to jump in.
Awesome. Let's see here. Oh, goodness.
Sorry.
I am going to say your name wrong. Can you please help me pronounce it? You know who I'm talking to.
KO.
KO?
Oh, it's KO. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. So typically I just will put down, if I'm going to do the full spread, I will put down a cloth just because I don't want the cards to get damaged usually. I try to be flexible with that. Let's say if I'm curious about something and I'm riding public transportation, I'll have my cards on me. I'll pull out a card and I'll look at one card because I don't have the room. But typically I don't do an elaborate setup unless I have the space and the time.
All right. Kelly.
Well, hello there. Relatively new, so hi.
Hello.
So I do osteomancy. And I haven't done it in a while because I haven't been in the right setting for, but it used to be because I used to live out in Yellowstone. I used to live there, yes. Because I used to work in the park, and I would go to gut roads and find like animal bones. And so my setting is nature, and it's pretty fluid, and the setting is simply that surrounded by all those bones and animal carcasses and whatnot. So that's my setting, and it's pretty much on the fly. So
Yeah,
Right,
thank
let's
you. It sounds very like you would connect to something that way. It's so visceral.
let's see here. Anyone else for this before I talk a little bit about mine?
KO, is your hand still up? Or okay. I think you're good, Solaris.
Okay. So, personally, I do have a shop where I do readings, and for that reason, there's certain things that I set up aesthetically to kind of, this needs to look professional. This needs to be, a branding setup.
Mm-hmm.
So part of that is kind of a stagecraft, but I also do a lot of my photography on my main working altar, and there's, a lot of things where it's like, these are tools that I work with regularly. I've bonded with, they are representatives of my path. They are things that really get me in touch with what I am working with at any given time. And I bring a lot of channeling into all of my readings, and having all of those tools there that aren't the divination devices, that aren't the things that I'm reading from, does actually help me, bridge that connection and bring it in as supporting objects. And then, with my scrying practice, it gets a little more elaborate than that, because there's, either my black mirror, a bunch of candles, different specific incense blends, depending on if I'm doing it from, a bowl. I have a antique silver bowl that was gotten from a estate sale. Actually, I had to bargain with the deceased for using it, but it was a fun time, and I use it as a scrying bowl now. And so there's a lot of trappings where it's like, okay, I'm scrying on the water surface, but there's all of these other things around it which set the space for me, get me in touch with what I'm working with, things along those lines. Gosh, I didn't even pull up my notes before coming in here. Let's see here. Okay. Gosh, I was going to say something about ceremonial magic and using representations in order to draw stuff down, but I have only had half a cup of coffee at this point. So if anyone really wants to jump on that, like, by all means. But here we go, Wade.
Using the whole ceremonial magic and using representations, you can use and this is just sort of how I do it, but you can use, especially like in tarot, which I don't really mess with anymore, you can use tarot cards as stand-ins for divination when you're trying to do a specific reading on something. And sometimes you have to be in the right setting for that to work. If you're trying to reach Artemis, that's not going to work real great in a city.
Yeah.
But getting into the right setting for that, and then having the right stand-in or tarot card for that, is very, very helpful.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. I've never thought of that in terms of, like you just said, working with Artemis. But that just bleeds more into this whole thing with setting, which is something that I can spend more time thinking about. It would probably make things, it's really connecting is all I'm trying to say. Thank you.
Yeah, it's like, when I'm doing a lot of work with, the depth of mind and everything, it's, I have my chthonic altar. It's low to the ground. I've got, bones. I've got all different things that I've used in my work for a long time that's really infused with that energy, and, helps me open those doors for me to get to the information that I need to. And then I also have my offering station and all of that for afterwards as well. And, it's like, I could just sit down and use a deck of cards and be like, okay, here's my reading. But I like bringing in these extra trappings. I like having, the tablecloth. I like having the candles. I like the incense. And I'm a little bit of a Victorian history nerd, especially the spiritualism movement, like hardcore. I love it. It's such a mood. But at the same time, looking back through history as well, we've got things like the Oracle of Delphi, who was sitting in this ritualistic space over, a gas vent. So, I mean, getting high off those fumes a little bit, but it was part of the process. Like, there was ritual purification. There was, the inhalation of the fumes from this. There was the communing with the spirits that were there. All of these things combined made that divination. So it wasn't just, them sitting there and just streaming. It was all of these things working in concert together.
I have a question. Did you have sort of a journey with your setting, or did you always, like, did you from the start have a setting as part of your practice?
It's been a journey. Because my mother is the one who taught me how to read tarot cards. She gave me her first deck that she learned on. And so this, I started out sitting on the carpet cross-legged with a deck of cards, no guidebook, just, sitting across from her. And I carried that deck with me for years. I actually paid for coffee and cigarettes in college by tarot readings. People would either give me a coffee or a pack of cigarettes when I'd do a reading for them. And I'd be sitting at the cafe at the Student Union building at the college with my tarot deck, like no special setting, nothing. Like that's just, So, Cal wants to see, is it Schrodinger who's up there, Jess, right now? Or is it, which cat is it?
It's
Schrodinger?
Sorry.
Okay. Sorry. That just show cat is important.
a little bit.
Oh my god. Oh, thank you. I'm hoping to get my own soon, so I appreciate that.
She's my 6-pound angry little ballerina. So
Yeah, that describes a cat, yeah. But yeah, setting was an evolution. Like I wanted to have like the big, I someday I want to have a seance table.
Yeah.
But currently I don't have that. When I started my shop, I was like, shit, I need to make this stuff look professional. What am I going to do? I put an altar cloth on the floor and I have a rolling, what is it? Closet stand, like closet hanger thing that I put a bath tub sheet thingy on. You know what I'm trying to say. It's
the like shower curtain.
Yes, that is a shower curtain on a rolling closet thing.
Oh, got it.
And it's shiny, occulty, and I could move it. And yeah, I had that in the background. I had my setup on the floor with an altar cloth on the floor with some cheap dollar candles I got from the dollar store that I, drew stuff on. And that was my setting. And that got me in I'm sitting at this space. I'm going to be doing divination. And that got me in that frame of mind. So it wasn't just for, I need to look professional. It also set me in the mindset of I'm going to be doing this work and I need to open these channels.
And you've noticed like a marked difference between the two?
I would say that part of it is because of years and years and years of practice and different tools. I read completely differently than I used to. Because I used to, it was a Rider-Waite deck. I was reading off of, okay, these are the color correspondences. These are the parts of the path. This is how it, ties into the Kabbalah. This is, this, that, and the other. And I would read it like it was, okay, I'm reading exactly what path the Golden Dawn said needed to be in these cards. And then with the Thoth Tarot, it was very much, OTO Thelema that I was reading off of it. And I don't do that anymore. Like they come out now and then. But it's usually for people who are walking those paths that they come out for. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, that makes sense because that's a message they can translate.
Totally. Yeah, I just asked because it ties into the article that Ursa just posted, the Up to Snuff, and I just wanted to ask.
I haven't finished reading that yet. Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. And just kind of about like, so you're a person where you are in your craft and what you're doing, where you have a beautiful setup and it helps you get into that. And I just asked that question because I wanted to know, what was your journey with that? Were you always doing that? Because I assume there's people here who are in various stages of having setups, and see kind of what you felt about the difference. And I had the suspicion that it would be a combination of the two. Like I've been reading for so long, it kind of developed within me. Plus, adding this setting really just gets me in the mind frame, and the combination really charges things up.
Yeah.
That kind of what you were saying?
Yeah. Yeah. KO. Oh God, I'm sorry. I need more coffee, but
All right. Yeah, thank you. I also have I do have a kind of like empty altar, pretty much. It's just a big tall stand-up mirror, and I can, move objects on it, keep it very clean, and put in whatever I want to charge for that time. Occasionally, if I wake up in the morning and I decide to do a tarot ritual that morning, I'll leave whatever 1 card layout that I put there, I'll leave it there to charge all day in the mirror while I go about my day. And while I look back on it, I can feel it there in my room. So I'm still, trying to, because, you pull that card, you don't really know 100% what it could mean, even if you have insight into it, so leaving it there helps me meditate on the reading.
And I do that with some of my big spreads too, where I'll leave them on my altar for a while and spend time with them and come back to them and, work with them over time.
Wade?
I wanted to circle back because I feel like I wanted to circle back on Kelly's statement about osteomancy, because I think that you, Solaris, are uniquely qualified to speak on something of this nature. How do you feel about that sort of natural setting when you're working in that sphere?
To him or to me?
Yes, to you.
To me. Working with bones and animal spirits in a place that has a lot of bones and animal spirits and the place that they lived and walked, I feel like is a stronger connection, honestly. It's one of those things where I live in a massive urbanized city. And I've been trying to build an osteomancy set for a long time and just haven't been able to. I haven't really been able to connect with them all that much. I connect more with them on the spirit level than the finding bones and being able to connect with them where they lived, because it's a big city. Sometimes I'll run into a squirrel and that's about it. So it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, out in the forest, calling on the bones to give you answers in that place, I feel like taps into something beyond just the bones. And when I do get a chance to get out of the city and go out into the forest and just really commune with the cycle and the ebb and the flow of everything that's going on, it's a completely different experience than trying to do that in the city, where it's all gated, regulated, and they try to uniform it, and so you don't get that feeling of the life into death and all of that you would get where it's not so rigid. Kelly, yes.
Yeah, so it is definitely like that. But for me, it's like at that where I used to do it at the gut road, I considered like almost like a crossroads, really, because there were really a real strong of the death vibe was definitely there, but at the same time it's a real strong, it's kind of like, it's weird, it's a hard to really explain. It's like you're feeling yourself being tugged in two different directions, because besides the immediate surroundings of the gut road, you've got the forest there, and there's constantly elk running around, there's bison, etc., running around. So you're constantly just, it's like getting tugged in two different directions, but at the same time it's like a very strong flow, I guess that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, that made me think, like, out in the forest, you're talking about that, like, those contrasting tugs. Out in the forest, the cycle is never broken in the way that it can be in the city. An animal dead in the street is like swept up and thrown in the garbage. It doesn't really become, I mean, later on things will digest it down and everything, but it's not part of the immediate cycle that's like unbroken in the forest. Where something is dead, it's usually eaten within pretty short order, and that death is like very much linked with the life in the forest, whereas in the city the death can by and large just be a death and everything just keeps moving.
Right. And the thing is too, I left it there for I used to have an incense boat I had out of an elk bone, but I left there for two reasons. One, the more important one is if I get caught with that, it's a huge fine taking it out of a national park.
Oh, yeah.
But and two, it was, it just wouldn't have felt right to pull it away from its where it was. It just wouldn't have felt right taking it from its setting to bring it into, an urban setting. Anyway, there's a company that makes a really good incense blend. If necrotic forces are your thing for divination, a company called Teufelkunst, they've got a incense.
Oh, yes, them. Sorry, go ahead.
Can somebody write that in the chat, please, so I can write that down?
They've got an incense called Cayenne, which it's real strong connection to the necrosophic forces, so to speak. So, burning that in a naturally bone incense boat on top of it, it's definitely adds to the, like you say, the vibe. And because psychodrama is a huge, important part of the whole thing, very important. It's the best way to get yourself in that mindset. So there's my 2 cents.
We're going to need that name of the company in the chat. Everyone is yelling. And then also on Hiero proper, because I feel like a lot of people will be interested in that. Okay, cool. Yeah, wouldn't have been able to come up with that by myself.
German.
For everyone who's listening, I guess it is TEUFELKUNST. Again, that's TEUFELKUNST.
I believe they are still on break. One of my tattoos is actually done by her as a sigilization of Wolfbane.
I think she just came back. I was just watching her on Instagram. I think she just got back.
Okay, because
she just put something new out.
Yeah, her website is still in the coming back somehow.
Yep, she just put something out, like a new tattoo design. She posted it.
Don't tempt me. Anyway, but yes, let's see here. Okay, that right there is a whole other conversation when we get into working with plant spirits in the poison path versus the divination side, because it is
Are you referencing something in the chat?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because Wolfbane definitely falls under poison path, and I would love to delve into that in another chat. But for the sake of staying somewhat on topic, divination. So, we've kind of been talking about a lot of the whole sparkly, oh, look at this great setup. And, there's a point where, you don't need a setup. but um you know, it's one of those things where it's like, if you put your energy into something, into making something, and then you bring that in with you, it's like coming with more things. So it's like, yeah, you could totally sit and read the cards and get a great reading, and you can make those connections and all of those things. But it's like, oh yeah, no, I have these sigil charged candles that I made myself that I use specifically for helping me make those connections. And sometimes you get a little extra oomph from that, you know? So like, this was kind of a focus on, I really should have drank more coffee before this. This is really a look at what other things you can bring into your divination that's not just the cards in the guidebook, or you know, the runes, or you know, your casting bag, your bag of all cool charms. Well, I guess no, you might be able to have a cool background for your shufflemancy playlist, but that's a whole different thing. Oh god, there's 3 hands. Who is first?
Jessica.
Oh, you guys are all pointing at each other. You know what?
Wade was last, so we'll go with Jessica.
Yeah, Jess hasn't talked yet. Let's go.
I know, I'm overtly quiet tonight. Honestly, what I like to do is I like to add in a lot of crystals surrounding me as well that deal with the different aspects of divination and bringing knowledge and communication to me, and kind of bridging that gap and energizing myself while I'm working. I found that typically helps between that and the incense, and then I'll have like specific little candles going on here and there. And it kind of just charges the whole concept. But my favorite, I have to have my chamomile tea, because I have to be like super chill. Otherwise my brain's like 90 miles an hour.
We all have a medicine. Definitely.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I do have other things besides the chamomile,
but
KO, I think you were next. Oh, Jessica, are you still talking? No, she was just, that was a show and tell moment.
I was saying, do I do it now or later?
Now.
All right, so I believe next was...
You want me to go?
Yes.
All right. So I was thinking, I think I mentioned earlier in the answer on the site that if you're in a bad emotional mood, if you're like at the bottom of your depressive episode and you're not really feeling like you're ready to have hope yet, like if you're still in the darker side of it and you go to your cards for some kind of answer, I think that like your state influences your intuition a lot. And in my personal experience, that creates a kind of self-fulfilled prophecy, and that's something that you want to avoid, because once you've seen it and said it and accepted it for yourself, because we all see it differently, you know, you'll put yourself in a bad mindset. And like once you can be in a bad place, but you want to be ready to get over that. You want to have that voice say, I'm ready for something new, and actually seek it, because the cards themselves, in my personal opinion, are not necessarily magical. It's you with these ideas in front of you that creates a connection to something else. So if your heart is spoiled at the time, you're gonna come up with things that you don't want to see.
Sorry.
It's okay. I was just gonna say, and that's one of the problems I have with daily draws, especially when people are doing a daily tarot draw at the beginning of their day. You know, if someone draws the tower, they're gonna look for the tower all damn day. And you know, miss the point that the tower is an absolutely fantastic card, and I will fight everyone on it. But you know, that's my personal opinion on the tower. But but yeah, it's, self-fulfilling prophecy is a huge thing. And I have another chat idea. Thanks. Wade, you have your hand up.
So speaking as a walking personification of the tower, yes,
This is why we get along.
yes, like tear it all down, but also, rebuild and do some stuff. But Leaf earlier today put a comment out asking about psychedelics and divination. And I would be really curious to see your opinion on that, Solaris, and to spark a conversation about it.
Okay. So as someone who let's see here. How do I tightrope this? So I believe that psychedelics can be used to help break down barriers that are stopping people from making the connections that they need to, because there's something holding them back. I am very much of the book that psychedelics are not necessary for any spiritual practice. They are not the end all be all, but they can be used as a tool so long as they don't become a crutch. And it's something where it's like, people who have gone through the full experience of ayahuasca, guided by a priest, going through the journey and meeting with ayahuasca, have a transformative experience that's completely undeniable. But someone who, gets ayahuasca off the deep web and drops some in their apartment in their smelly socks isn't going to get the same experience as someone who is in a prepared ritual setting with a guide in order to take them on that journey. So it's what?
Do you think that I knew you had some other thoughts, but I guess I immediately thought, do you think an ego death is good when you start getting serious into divination?
Ooh, God, you're really hitting me with the hard ones, huh?
Sorry.
I honestly think ego death is necessary in all journeys at some point. I am very much I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but I'm very much about the cycle of death and rebirth in the self, and the death of previous versions of the self in order to make the new self. I have held funerals for myself before. And it's one of those things where it's like, as you're growing in any path, there's going to be a point where you have come so far that looking back at what you did originally, it looks like gobbledygook to you, and you're like, oh wow. And then you realize it's because you are standing at a completely different position than you were before. And yes, they are, Ursa. Yes, they are. And so it's one of those things where it's like, once you go through certain doorways, you can't close that doorway again. And you're going to be looking at everything from a completely different angle than you were before. And something that I teach when I'm teaching my scrying class that I've done previously is tilt the mirror at 30 degrees and then see how different it is. Like, you're looking at it straight on, but then tilt it 30 degrees and look again. And it's one of those things where it's like the changing perspective is really important for growth.
Yeah, 100%.
Good insight. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I completely agree. I think it's necessary for growth to have the person that you invented fall apart sometimes. The only way to get to where you want to be going is to shed a skin, every once in a while, to borrow a snake's living metaphor.
Don't you bring my boy Jormungandr into this.
What? What did you say?
I said, don't you bring my boy Jormungandr into this. He's a good
Oh,
boy.
okay. Got it. Yes. Solaris.
Any other questions right now? Okay. There we go. There's another hand.
KO.
Yes. This is a personal thing that I have been convinced of throughout my long history with the tarot. I've been reading tarot since before I was, old enough to pretend to buy cigarettes or beer. So, I believe in a thing called spinning the wheel, and every time that you lay down a divinatory practice, you are spinning a wheel. Every time that you peek into the future, you are changing the future. So let's say that, you did a reading 2 days ago, and it was a good reading. It was a great reading, and everything is going fine, and you are happy, and you're just like, I want something more. Sometimes reaching into the divinatory practice will change the outcomes of your previous reading, right? We all have those times when we keep trying to get a different reading and we get the same card over and over again. But sometimes we'll get a whole new card and it won't actually be very helpful. And you'll end up with sometimes the lesser fortune. And I don't know, that's my experience. You have to accept your message.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a big one. Solaris, sorry.
Oh, no. Go ahead. I cut you off last time.
Oh no, I was saying that's so big, like we will do a spread and then not like the answer and then just keep doing it. And it's kind of like take your medicine. Like you're getting a heads up that where you're at, going back to like the weird that you have, you need to do something to shift it. Like you need to nudge the margin, or this is what we're coming up on. And I think it's so important to just like keep that in mind, like why we're doing divination when we do it. It's not to be an imaginatory aid to like flesh out the world we're trying to construct in our mind. We're kind of getting down to it. Where am I, and what is the most likely outcome if I don't shift some things around?
Yeah, and that's where when I was taught tarot, I was taught a spread that had branching paths, so that there were different actions and different consequences in a kind of like a tree branching branch, so that it was like, this is not fixing your future. You still have decisions you need to make, and they ripple in this way. But since then, a lot of my practice has pulled away from let's look at what the future is and more of a deep analysis of what do I need currently in my path.
Yeah,
and it's become a lot more of a spiritual compass than, like the am I gonna have a good week at work, or I still get those questions as someone who works professionally, but oh god, sometimes I wish I didn't.
Like, and it's insightful because where we are at in that moment determines the work week. It's not like the work week is going to retroactively put us in a better mood, and so we're projecting a good week at work. It's letting you know, like, the week at work might be bumpy because you're in a bitter ass mood, and like you need to do something about that, or you're going to have a shitty week. Yeah, I forget who was next.
I know Jess had her hand up.
I can't figure out my screen. Well, I was trying to say, because we were talking about how, like, people redo their readings and keep getting the same thing, and then it's like you get the opposite all of a sudden, or something of the lesser. Ironically, I have had decks actually just shut me out and just say, stop asking.
I've gotten the bitch please treatment too before, so yeah, I don't repeat questions.
If I repeat it enough, especially with the newer deck, Soul,
oh yeah, that one.
Occult deck, it will literally say, bye, I'm done. And it's like, okay, I get the point. Good night.
Take the medicine.
Yes, it's interesting when you have a deck that will actually, like, I have two that will literally just call me out on my shit every single time. Every time.
Right? And that's a place of power. Like, getting called out is a place of power, because that's when you have an opportunity to pivot. Like, am I going to continue to be on my bullshit, or am I going to do something
And I think
new?
that boils back down to not necessarily just paying attention to the deck, but even utilizing your intuition with the deck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For me, it's definitely a conversation more than the deck just telling me something, because at first glance, it can be like, oh, but then like you sit and you think and you have the conversation and you're like, okay, I could see
I'll
see
even
it.
do like the yes, no in between, you know, it's like I ask the question and it's like, okay, we're talking about the question. And I'm like, really, yes or no? And it's like, oh, okay.
Definitely. Wade?
All right, you did it to yourselves. So, Brendan, you brought up weird.
I saw it coming.
Yeah. And so we're talking about divination, and you're gonna bring in weird. All right. Let's get fucking weird here. Especially because you brought up Solaris, you brought up the branching tree.
I knew exactly what I was doing.
This is the Yggdrasil reading. And yeah, you can't trust it. Because you're weird. It doesn't work that way.
It does not.
Like you can't do that. When you're divining, you're basically, at best, you are hoping for an answer. And you're reaching out to the universe, and guess what? Most of the time, the universe is going to tell you to go fuck yourself.
Well, Ratatosk will make it funny, at least.
Yes. Like you can get an inkling. You can get a direction. Hopefully you get some guidance. But you're not going to get the answer. It doesn't work that way. Especially when if you're a believer in weird, like, guess what? You're fucked.
I find it rather empowering myself, but that's just me.
Well, I mean, yes, it is. But it requires a level of acceptance. It requires a level of acceptance about understanding that sometimes you are being carried on the ship of fate.
Yeah.
And you can nudge it. Again, we're coming back to the ship of fate thing. You can nudge it. You can try and put it in the direction that you want. But yes, Kale, the wheel turns and the gods laugh.
Wheel of Fortune. That's
Bing, bing, bing.
Before we get to Catherine, I just wanted to say I bring that up a lot in Now the Words Are Leaving Me. What do I say? 1 second. Oh yeah, that like the only thing we could really control is how we choose to experience something internally. Like ultimately we are on this wheel. Like things are going to happen. At best, like you said, we're getting a peak And all the peak does is give us an opportunity to frame the experience we're about to have. We largely can't do much more than that, and just work the margins.
Or you know, maybe you get to see the iceberg.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
you see the iceberg and maybe you can dodge it and maybe you get hit by it, but you know, you do your best.
Yeah, and you can prepare. Yeah.
Sometimes the wheel's on fire and covered in eyeballs, but you know.
Yes.
Catherine?
Yeah, it makes me think about, have you guys ever watched New Girl where Jess and Nick are like, weird, weird, weird? And I always saw it in my head like WYRD when they were acting so weird with each other. That's such a random thing, but maybe you've seen it. But yeah, thinking about just sitting in and listening to this, because this is the first one that I've come in on. And so the energy is totally vibing and I'm vibrating and I love it. So thank you. I like this topic because setting is so important to me for anything that I go into. And, you know, setting the stage, I've always thought about it so much with before I go into a plant medicine ceremony or with mushrooms, and like being very conscious of it with that. And getting in the mindset before that is the most important thing, like you guys were talking about. And I see with like my daily practice as I'm listening to you guys, that setting is just, as far as daily practice goes, it's so interwoven into every facet of my life. And so it's really not for me. It hasn't really become for me like, okay, it's time, like, let's get started. And so let's put this shit down and let's do all it's hopefully already there. And maybe I'm just gathering a few things or rearranging a few things, but it's kind of, you know, like I said, interwoven into every facet of my life. If I feel like, you know, I've been living in alignment with what feels best for me, and like, can a setting really intensify it? Of course. Can things bring it in for me? Can objects bring it in for me? Of course. You better believe if Odin comes in, the white horse is on the altar and there's vodka there because he loves libations and things like that, you know? But in the beginning, it was so much like, okay, we have to go over here and like create this. Yeah. And I noticed such a big difference where it's not like, okay, let's begin and let's get started. And now let's pull out all of the bells and whistles. I think we used to have to kind of be like that. But now the energy of this planet and this dimension, it's really not limited to that. We can really have it here in a different way, interwoven into our everyday life. And then we can intensify it. Like when we're setting the stage for something like this, really what we're doing is we're opening a container, which is something that you expanded for me, Brendan, talking about the containers. And
yeah. Like the container is very much like the set and the setting and like what we can do in that space. Totally.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me to listen to y'all. And like I said, it's my first time here, and I'm enjoying listening to other people that have so much wisdom to share and clearly have been dancing in these realms for a while. And so thank you. It's just, you know, it's just so funny, you know, divination. It's so tricky. Like y'all were saying, you know, like this is a free will universe and we are all powerful creators with free agency. And so what are we choosing to open up when we go here? What are we choosing to find the quote unquote answer to? Why are we coming here? And then the setting kind of seems to come pretty fast after that if I know the why. Is any of that making sense?
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those things where it's like, you know, in college, I was relegated to having to carry my stuff with me all the time because I had my altar destroyed by a dorm mate.
Oh no.
So, and it's one of those things where it's like, you know, I didn't have that sacred space that I could set and bring into my life. So I had to bring it on me at all times. Whereas now, you know, I've got my own domain here. And so it's like I have a set space that I have dedicated, and it is, you know, I've been building the energy in it. I've been putting, oh hush. Oh my God. Silence my phone. And so, you know, I've had this space that I've set up and I've been able to put energy into and all of these things. And you know, so now it's a part of my everyday life. Like if I want to come get on the computer, I cross through my ritual space.
Yeah.
And you know, it's really great being able to connect with these things so much and build that bond where it's easier to slide into that. Like I don't need a big, you know, ritual in order to start out my divination practice anymore. There's still certain things like dream walking where I have a full ritual kit and caboodle for initiating that. But you know, for sitting down with just tarot cards, I can just sit at my computer and pull out some decks and say, who wants to get dragged? Like, you know, that happens.
Yeah, and you know, it made me laugh too, but this is just a side note, totally Solaris. But when you were saying like, hey, I got paid by getting coffee and cigarettes for readings, I was like, oh my God, that's so very high priestess, like bringing the offerings for the readings. And total side, well, not side note, it's right here with what we're talking about, but I wanted to point out something that has just zinged me through this whole thing. I love what Jessica said about like bringing things to the space when I'm setting the stage that also energize myself too, I think is what you said. And as far as like, I used to in the beginning get so caught up with like, oh my God, I have to make sure that all the offerings are just right and all the things are set out just right. And I don't want to piss them off. And if Odin comes and I don't have vodka, I'm not that dumb and shit like that, which is very true and very real. And also I would forget about myself. Like I am worthy to come to the same table, and that's why they come. And so I deserve to bring things that energize myself as well. And then Brendan said, oh God, what'd you say? We, you know, we all have our medicines and we need to remember the medicine for everybody that's at the table. Because that's what's happening now. It's like what we were talking about, Brendan. It's like the gods are here on this planet now. And guess what? They are us. They are us as well. And so let's remember our own offerings and our own things that we want to have in the circle as well. And now I will zip it probably.
No, thank you. Thank you. Then thank you for coming. This is Catherine's first one. Wade, how are you?
Okay, real quick, Catherine, before you zip it completely. Are you an Odin follower?
I would say yes. I mean, I'm an everyone follower. It depends on who comes in, but Odin came in during a plant medicine ceremony 3 years ago and hasn't left yet. So I'm going to say yes.
Well, we should talk after this.
I would love it, Odinson.
Yes, I'll hit you up. We'll figure it out. Find me. I'm pretty prominent on Hiero.
Just power sliding into DMs.
Oh yeah, you better believe. You better believe. I gotta put my crew together. One of the things you mentioned that you had Solaris. You mentioned that you had your entire computer area was it's a sanctified space at this point. Yes.
Yes.
I fucking adore that. Like I really, really, really appreciate that. I think that that's the coolest thing anybody has ever said about anything. Like,
I mean, you say that, but like, so I've got one of those weird kind of like cube divider things that my computer tower's sitting on, and there's an altar sitting next to that. And then it's a devotional altar with different tools and everything that I'm not currently using. And then on my desk itself, I'll just randomly get inspiration, and I have wood carving tools, and it's covered in sigils.
Oh, cool.
So, but
I love that because it is in multiple forms a workspace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that you understand the value of, or let me rephrase that. I appreciate that you don't see a distinction between the various forms of work you do. If that makes sense.
No, that makes total sense. Thank you. So we are at 9:59. So I'm just going to take this moment to jump in and say thank you to everybody who came tonight. I love seeing everyone. We got new faces, and we had a really insightful discussion that covered like a lot of different things. And this topic on setting gives me a few ideas about how to maybe start returning to some things. So thank you for that, Solaris. We do these every weeknight, usually at 7, sometimes at 9, so keep an eye out on the time. But I'm gonna pass it back to Solaris for his goodbyes, and then we will see you guys later.
Thank you all for coming. It was nice to see, returning faces, new faces, really get a good chat going about some of the other things that go on in the sidelines on divination that aren't always talked about, because everyone's always like, oh, look at this pretty new deck, or, yeah, usually this pretty new deck. So, there's a lot more to divination than just the divining device. So that was fun. Thank you guys.
Yes, thank you. And tomorrow we will be discussing the astral with Alwyn. So I hope to see some of you there. Bye guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.